Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good afternoon, everyone. A joyous welcome to you for our Saturday class, where we are continuing our reading and discussion of Swami Prabhavananda's translation of and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which he published as the book How to Know God. So we're just very much into the book, but starting chapter 2. We're on Shloka 5 or Sutra 5 of chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the practice of yoga. Chapter 1 was the aim of yoga, which of course is to learn how to still the thought waves of the mind. This is not an easy process. The mind, the left mind especially, is very active, and it's called the monkey mind or the chatterbox, and these are unflattering ways to look at a necessary aspect of ourselves. We need the left mind, of course, to navigate the world and do our duties and enjoy ourselves. But the tendency of the left mind to be predominant is an issue if we want to learn our true original nature, which is hiding in the silence of our interior being. So we need to learn how to still this left mind, and for that matter, the more active imagination aspects of the right mind, so that we can hear this still inner voice that whispers to us what we truly are, which is the word for it in the yogi way of talking is the Atman, the Atman. So we'll be talking about the Atman as we go along. But before we proceed, are there any leftover questions from our earlier readings and discussion, something that remains unsettled or something that you would like to comment on that has not been already discussed to your satisfaction? All right. Because our regular... Yes.
This is Jeff. Your regular reader is here.
Well, bless us and save us. We didn't expect you.
The computer says something else. I'm using my host's computer down here in Lehigh Acres, Florida. And I am most join you and be of service if you need me.
Well, we would very much like you to read. Thank you for letting us know. I was about to introduce someone else as our reader. Very, very glad to have you with us. Jeff has been our reader, and very capably so. So we're going to start with chapter 2, shloka 5. Jeff, if you would read until there's a need for an interruption.
Certainly. Shloka 5. To regard the non-eternal as eternal, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-Atman as the Atman. This is ignorance. Shloka 6. To identify consciousness with that which merely reflects consciousness, this is egoism. Shall I read those again?
No, I think that's fine. The Swami will comment and it'll be clear what he's talking about.
Ignorance, by Patanjali's definition, is false identification. It is a misunderstanding of one's real nature. If you say, I am this body, which is named Patanjali, you are regarding the non-Atman as the Atman. And this initial act of ignorance will lead automatically and instantaneously to millions of similar acts.
Now, that needs to be taken, hang on. That needs to be taken very seriously, what the Swami just said. And this initial act of ignorance, identification with the body, will automatically and instantaneously lead automatically and instantaneously to millions of similar acts. Now, the Swami does not use the word millions casually. What he's pointing to is our samskaras. We have millions of samskaras, these mental impressions that identify us with that which is not eternal, that which is not our true original nature. And so this is what the Swami means by millions of similar acts. We will, each of those potential samskaras, which are Jill Bolte Taylor in her book, My Stroke of Insight, calls them neural loops. When they're touched on by some outside influence, it seems to be outside in any case, something touches one of these neural loops, it performs its loop function. It does what it remembers to do. And there are millions of them. These are what we're trying to still. These are what give rise to our thoughts, our emotions, our perceptions. And this is what the yogi is trying to still. So is there any concern or question or comment from your own experience about this particular aspect?
Hello, brother. This is Stephen.
Yes, Stephen.
Yes, I have a question about number 5, and perhaps as we go on, it'll become clear. But this is an ongoing source of question for me in Vedanta, is because, you know, when I read number 5, it seems like there's a duality there, right? The painful's, it seems like saying, okay, well, the painful's not the pleasant, the impure is not the pure, and yet it seems like then we also hear the teachings of non-duality in Vedanta, and so
But we mustn't jump tracks, Stephen.
Yes.
This is Patanjali's teachings, his workbook, and it is based in Sankhya, which is inherently dualistic. So there's nothing wrong with dualism. It is a way of grasping the reality in which we exist, which is inherently dual. We ate, according to the Christian Judeo-Christian scriptures, we ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so we have both these within us. So though non-dualism is a path, the Jnani's path, Advaita, non-dual, it is not Patanjali's path. Patanjali deals with the dualism and gets us to a non-dual state, but through the practice of duality and seeing the fact that there is within duality, Maya as it is called, both darkness and light. The pleasant is one thing, the good is another. The pleasant, from Patanjali's point of view, from a yogi's point of view, the pleasant is probably going to be an obstacle for us. The good, therefore, is the choice to make. So yes, there is a conflict between Advaita or Jnana Yoga and Patanjali's Raja Yoga, but it's because they are two separate paths within the overall umbrella called Vedanta. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I didn't realize that, but that's very helpful.
Okay, very good, Stephen.
Thank you, brother.
Sure.
I think that's a great.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Oh, okay. I was thinking this morning, my father used to pop up at the dinner table with a question that we'd have to sit and ponder and give answers to. This is when we were kids. And this morning I was thinking about him, and the question I imagined him asking me was, what is the most important thing to know? And so, of course, I had to think about it. And what came to me is the most important thing to know is that nothing is as it seems to our senses.
Ah. Amen, sister.
And yet we are embodied beings and we have senses, and that's how we navigate this world. That's how we're here right now, talking, reading, discussing. And it's really, I think if we can get to the point where we can hold both of these, dualism, qualified, all of it at the same time, it is not black and white. It's not either or, because
yes.
If we could talk about non-duality, we wouldn't be able to talk about it.
Yes, exactly. There's nothing to say about the non-dual, because the non-dual does not, precisely speaking, exist. As St. Thomas Aquinas said in one of his poems, creation both does and does not exist. And so you're saying, yes, very accurately, we must be able to hold both of these thoughts in mind at the same time. Manifestly, those of us who are here this morning and who are doing this, we exist. And yet this existence is non-eternal. This particular stardust spacesuit that we're indwelling, that is the palace of our senses, it will perish. It will stop functioning. But something does not stop functioning. It goes on. This is what we're told by the teachers, by the scriptures. So even that is not the non-dual, the non-existence of as you said, the fact that our senses are not correctly interpreting what is actually happening. Thank you, Cindy, as always. Jeff.
Yes, I'm maybe thinking outside the box here, but Up until recently, I've been thinking of non-dualism and dualism as different ways of looking at the same thing. But lately, I've been thinking about what they say in quantum physics, where the observer influences that which is being observed. We are all Atman and ultimately Brahman. We are the ultimate observer, having influence on what we are observing.
Amen.
So
Precisely. We're doing this because we want to, and we are creating, each of us, we are creating our own universe.
So if we see the universe as duality, then that's what exists. If we see the word as non-dualism, if we have that realization, then it's all non-dual. It's whatever we believe, whatever we know.
You said the key word, Jeff, and that is realization. It's not knowledge as we normally think of it, because in the non-dual state, there is no mind to record, to experience, to understand. This is why Christ spoke of the peace that passeth all understanding. All understanding. What is understanding? Something we can speak of, think about. The peace that he is speaking of is what we call nirvikalpa samadhi. And though you may return from that state of realization, you simply cannot say what it is that you realized. And this is why it is said by so many saints, the true voice of the divine is silence. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
And we do, as spiritual aspirants, we hold both of these thoughts in mind at the same time. And Patanjali gets us to this non-dual state, which he calls kaivalya, independence, independence of any condition or limitation. Now, we can speak of that, we can read of it, but we really don't have any idea what that could possibly be like. We have no samskaras for it. And our samskaras are our only way of thinking about and understanding, which is why Patanjali says, replace the lower samskaras, those of the pleasant and the non-eternal, with those with higher samskaras. We replace them systematically through this workbook he's given us. We replace the pleasant with the good. And of course, what the hell does that mean? Well, we find out as we do it. We replace the pleasant, that is something that is pleasing to the senses, with the good, that which is pleasing to the higher mind. And finally, the higher mind becomes pure. Pure intellect, pure mind is pure consciousness. And as at that point, Patanjali says, your self-effort stops. And what you have been doing stops. That is to say, then what happens next is something that happens to you. We'll get there. Anything else from anyone?
Can you hear me, Shankara?
Yes, I can.
So it just occurred to me, and it seems kind of silly and simple, but if somebody could come back from samadhi and explain it, that kind of ends the game.
Well, that's what Sri Ramakrishna says. He says, I'm out of the game, he said.
Right. And the other thing that occurred to me is, so it's my understanding that in the ancient Hebrew text, that when Moses was instructed to remove his shoes, the Hebrew word was actually shed, translates as shed your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking, I realized that the analogy came to me that shedding the skin of duality allows for the oneness. And it was never alive to begin with, but it served the function of a veil for me. And when I get to samadhi, I can come back and put the skin back on if I want to participate in the world of duality, but it never was alive. I just thought it was because it was influencing my instruments of perception.
Yes, and in that state of nirvikalpa samadhi, the body does indeed appear to be dead. There is no sign of life.
Yes.
This has been demonstrated by the physicians that treated Sri Ramakrishna. These were very definitely physicians of a scientific frame of mind. And it confounded them, absolutely confounded them, that there was no sign, no observable sign of life in the body. And yet Sri Ramakrishna would return and revivify the body, as you said, put the shoes back on. So there's no way for us to understand. And that's why I said these doctors were confounded, because they simply did not understand. Nothing in their training or experience gave them any way to understand how someone could do this. And yet it was done. There it was. They were seeing it with their eyes and measuring it with their instruments. What a grace it is that we have this as evidence in the books that are written demonstrably, truthfully about the life of Sri Ramakrishna. And
so the moral of the story is, if you're going to take stock in the appearance of Maya, then you're going to be confounded, because there is no ultimate reality there.
Yes, and yet, what else do we have to deal with, Jeff? We have nothing but as Einstein said, don't be tricked into thinking that the best dealer with it is the left mind. He said the left mind is the servant. The right mind, that mind of imagination and imagery, and all of the things that are associated with the right mind. Again, if you want to get a lovely and very detailed description of this, read Jill Bolte Taylor's book, My Stroke of Insight. She was robbed of her left brain awareness and had only this right brain awareness that she didn't even have any conscious awareness of previously. Of course, we all have an awareness of it, but we're not conscious of being aware of it. So Einstein said the left brain is the servant. The left mind, the left mind is the servant. The right mind is the genius. We have created a society and culture that worships the servant and ignores the genius. So we have a higher way of dealing with this, even though it is still within Maya. And this is why the book that we're studying on Wednesday night, Swami Ranganathananda makes a very persuasive case that to be fully human is to be fully divine. Not that the spacesuit becomes divine, but the divinity that is within the spacesuit manifests itself and totally transforms our life within the spacesuit. And we're well along in the book, and he's making a very persuasive case. We just heard from St. Augustine's Confessions about how he came to this conclusion, that what he had been told by Christ, in the scriptures, was true. that if you found the city of God, if you Christ's instruction, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you, all wisdom and all righteousness. So this is what happens when we achieve this higher state of mind, which is Patanjali is leading us there. Anything else from anyone? Thank you again, Jeff. All right, please read on.
I'm going to go back to the top of the paragraph.
Okay.
Ignorance, by Patanjali's definition, is false identification. It is a misunderstanding of one's real nature. If you say, I am this body, which is named Patanjali, you are regarding the non-Atman as the Atman. And this initial act of ignorance will lead automatically and instantaneously to millions of similar acts. By denying the Atman within us, we deny it everywhere. We misread nature. We dwell on the outwardness of things, and we see the universe as multiplicity, not unity.
Which is exactly what Cindy was saying. Which is exactly what Cindy was saying earlier. This is our misunderstanding. So yes, multiplicity, not unity.
And that's what's most prevalent in our modern culture.
Oh, and really has always been. But it's very emphasized now. And we're very dependent, as Sri Ramakrishna says, on our senses. It's because of the nature of the Maya that we're living in, which is the Maya of the Kali Yuga by that definition. We live in a realm of endless noise and relentless confusion, very dependent on food. Okay. Pure
eternal joy and peace are to be found only in union with the Atman. Our ignorance debars us from that union, but the dim, confused longing for happiness remains. So we are driven to seek it in the external world. We are forced to accept wretched substitutes and to try to persuade ourselves that they are genuine and valid.
Notice the word wretched. You know, the Swami is a good writer and a careful selector of words. This is a word that can strike lightning in us. As Mark Twain said, the right word is like lightning. If we just allow ourselves to contemplate what is meant, we are forced by our samskaras, by our momentum, we are forced to accept wretched substitutes. Please read that sentence again, Jeff.
We are forced to accept wretched substitutes. Let me read the preceding sentence. So we are driven to seek it in the external world, it being our
happiness,
our quest for peace.
Yeah.
We are forced to accept wretched substitutes and to try to persuade ourselves that they are genuine and valid. Instead of eternity, we cling to what seems relatively enduring. Instead of purity, we value what seems relatively pure. Instead of true happiness, we clutch at what seems temporarily pleasant. But alas, our satisfaction is short-lived. The strongest tower falls, the most beautiful flower withers in our hands. The clearest water turns brackish and foul. Ignorance has betrayed us, as it always must. Yet, as we turn sadly away, our eyes fall upon some new object of sense attachment and desire. And so the hopeless search goes on.
Okay, hold on just a moment. The Swami would repeat and repeat and repeat to us, do not settle for second best. Do not settle for second best. What does that mean? It means continue your spiritual practices, and to the extent that you are able to let go of, which is the meaning of renounce, let go of your attachment to second bests. Any comments or questions from anyone? Okay, please read on, Jeff.
The central act of ignorance is the identification of the Atman, which is consciousness itself, with the mind body, that which merely reflects consciousness. This is what Patanjali defines as egoism. At whose behest does the mind think, asks the Kena Upanishad. Who bids the body live? Who makes the tongue speak? Who is that effulgent being that directs the eye to form and color and the ear to sound? The Atman is the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech. He is also breath of the breath and eye of the eye. Having given up the false identification of the Atman with the senses and the mind, and knowing the Atman to be Brahman, the wise become immortal.
Now, are there any comments? Wait. Are there any comments or questions about what he just read? Everything arises from the energy of Brahman, of the Atman. Everything arises, but it passes away because the nature of the manifest reality of Maya is eternal change. There's an eternality about it, but it is the eternal changing. So don't hold on to anything. This is given rise to by the Atman, by Brahman. I look at it and I let it pass away. I don't hold on to it and try to think this is, I'll settle for this second best and hold on to this. No, let it arise and pass away. This is exactly what we're going to talk about tomorrow morning. So anything else from anyone while we're paused?
I think that's where true happiness, joy, peace, whatever we want to call it, bliss, comes from. Because as embodied beings, and it's all about getting and keeping and having. It's about this extreme attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we can let go of things and ideas and opinions and everything, the freedom in that
Yes.
is a taste of
Yes.
liberation. A little
Is a taste of independence. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it isn't that this is, as Adi Shankaracharya, the great non-dualist, pointed out, this isn't unreal. It is simply a relative reality. It is a lower truth, as Swami Vivekananda put it. And this is what Patanjali is leading us through. We abandon lower truth for higher truth. Vivekananda said, we do not move from error to truth. It's not an error to be alive and to experience life. We do not move from error to truth. we move, if you will, he said, from lower truth to higher truth, and ever higher truth, and ever higher truth, and ever higher truth. As Swami Brahmananda said, light, more light, is there no end to it? And the answer is no. This is the answer of the teachers. So this is what makes it all so worthwhile, that this really is a possibility. And as Sri Krishna says, in the beginning, sour toil. But then, and he uses this word, nectar. And the word in Sanskrit is amrita, which means more than just our word nectar. It means that which is totally fulfilling, that which is totally satisfying.
I think the Buddhists are really good at explaining this, sort of holding the dual and the non-dual, the lower truths with the higher truths. At the same time, when I love the saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yes, no
Uh,
two ways about it. Yes, and of course, this is rooted in the Buddha's very eloquent exposition, the Diamond Sutras, they're called. And this is now the root and source of the wisdom that is growing in our friend Gareth Young, who's a Thai forest teacher, Thai forest Buddhism. Anything else from anyone while we're paused? All right, dears. Please read on, Jeff.
Western philosophy produced two schools of thought with regard to the problem of consciousness, the materialist and the idealist. The materialists believed that consciousness is a product in a process, that it arises when certain conditions are fulfilled and lost when these conditions do not exist. Thus, according to the materialist philosophers, consciousness is not the property of any single substance. The idealists, on the other hand, believed that consciousness is the property of the mind and were therefore faced with the conclusion that it must cease whenever the mind becomes unconscious. Modern scientists would seem inclined to reject both these hypotheses and to believe that consciousness is always present everywhere in the universe, even though its presence cannot always be detected by scientific methods. In this, they approach the viewpoint of Vedanta. And indeed, there are some distinguished scientists and scientific writers whose thinking has brought them to a study of Hindu philosophy. For example, Erwin Schrödinger, in his book, What is Life, writes as follows: consciousness is never experienced in the plural, only in the singular. How does the idea of plurality, so emphatically opposed by the Upanishad writers, arise at all? Consciousness finds itself intimately connected with consciousness finds itself intimately connected with and dependent on the physical state of a limited region of matter, the body. Now there is a great plurality of similar bodies. Hence, the pluralization of consciousness or minds seems a very suggestive hypothesis. Probably all simple, ingenuous people, as well as the great majority of Western philosophers, have accepted it. The only possible alternative is simply to keep the immediate experience that consciousness is a singular of that which the plural is unknown. I think I've mangled that sentence. Let me try it again. The only possible alternative is simply to keep the immediate experience that consciousness is a singular of which the plural is unknown, that there is only one thing, and that what seems to be plurality is merely a series of different aspects of this one thing produced by a deception, the Indian Maya. The same illusion is produced in a gallery of mirrors, and in the same way, Garisankar and Mount Everest turned out to be the same peak when seen from different valleys. Yet each of us has the undisputable impression that the sum total of this experience and memory forms a unit quite distinct from that of any other person. He refers to it as I. What is this I? If you analyze it closely, you will, I think, there he uses the word I. You will analyze it closely. If you analyze it closely, you will, I think, find that it is just a little more than a collection of single data, experiences, and memories.
Samskaras. Samskaras. Wait. He's pointing exactly at what it is that we experience. This collection of single data points, experiences, and memories, these are the samskaras. That's exactly what was being talked about earlier. And now Schrodinger is calling it experiences and memories. And that is the data from which we create our universe. And each one of our universes is different, very different, unique indeed. Though it has similarities, and we have a lot of agreements that allow us to do something like this afternoon. We have a lot of agreements with one another. All of those agreements are socially and culturally conditioned and change over time. The agreements that we have with one another are very different than those of the Egyptians that kept those slaves that Moses led out of Egypt. Their agreements were very different, and you can tell it by the language that they use in their hieroglyphic writing. They saw the world very differently. So, though they had, that really wasn't that long ago in cosmic time. As Swami Yogeshananda taught, Swami Yogeshananda, the founder of this center, consciousness is primary and is not plural. Of course, he knew this book by Schrodinger, but that's not where he came with this idea. That is the root of Vedic thinking. Consciousness is one and is not plural. Our plurality. So go back and read that sentence again, please, or sentences, if you would, Jeff, about how we derive plurality out of the singleness, the oneness.
Not sure how far back to go.
About 3 sentences, I think.
Okay. The only possible alternative is simply to keep the immediate experience that consciousness is a singular of which the plural is unknown, that there is only one thing, and that what seems to be a plurality is merely a series of different aspects of this one thing, produced by a deception, the Indian Maya. The same illusion is produced in a gallery of mirrors, and in the same way, Garisankar and Mount Everest turned out to be the same peak, even from different And in the same way, Garisankar and Mount Everest turned out to be the same peak seen from different valleys. Yet each of us has the undisputable Beverly wanting to say something?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yet each of us has the undisputable impression that the sum total of his experience and memory forms a unit quite distinct from that of any other person, refers to it as I. What is this I? If you analyze it closely, you will, I think, find that it is just a little more than a collection of single data, experiences, and memories, namely the canvas upon which they are collected. And you will, on close introspection, find that what you really mean by I is that ground stuff upon which they are collected. You may come to a distant country, lose sight of all your friends, may all but forget them. You acquire new friends. You share life with them as intensely as you ever did with your old ones. Less and less important will become the fact that while living your new life, you still recollect the old one. The youth that was I, you may come to speak of him in the third person. Indeed, the protagonist of the novel you are reading is probably nearer to your heart, certainly more intensely alive and better known to you. Yet there has been no immediate break, no death. And even if a skilled hypnotist succeeded in blotting out entirely all your earlier reminiscences, you would not find that he had killed you. In no case is there a loss of personal existence to deplore, nor will there ever be. Wow.
Yes, exactly. Wow. Now, this is Erwin Schrödinger, one of the great quantum physicists, reacting to what he had found and trying to grasp who is this observer that influences the observed. And that is a magnificent little book. Any comments or questions on what Jeff just read? Let me just say that what he's described by introspection is what Patanjali is leading us to in the practice of concentration. This is the introspection that allows us to discover the true I behind all of this immediate sense of I-ness that comes with identification with our memories and experiences. Anything else from anyone? Okay, please go on, dear.
Okay, we have another pair of shlokas. Number 7, attachment is that which dwells upon pleasure. Number 8, aversion is that which dwells upon pain.
Okay,
I'll read those again.
Yeah, please do.
Number 7, attachment is that which dwells upon pleasure. Number 8, aversion is that which dwells upon pain. Both are obstacles to enlightenment, or even to relative knowledge of a person or object. You cannot have any impartial, dispassionate insight into the character of one to whom you are blindly attached, or whom you regard with disgusted aversion. The spiritual aspirant must not love the things of this world too much, but he must not hate them either. Aversion also is a form of bondage. We are tied to what we hate or fear. That is why in our lives, the same problem, the same danger or difficulty will present itself over and over again in various aspects, as long as we continue to resist or run away from it instead of examining and solving it.
Which is exactly what is meant by the effects of karma. Our karma will continue to revisit us until we resolve what it is that the karma is trying to teach us. So would you please read that again, please?
Certainly. Slogan number 7, attachment is that which dwells upon pleasure. Number 8, aversion is that which dwells upon pain. Both are obstacles to enlightenment or even to relative knowledge of a person or object. You cannot have any impartial, dispassionate insight into the character of one to whom you are blindly attached or whom you regard with disgusted aversion. The spiritual aspirant must not love the things of this world too much, but he must not hate them either. Aversion also is a form of bondage. We are tied to what we hate or fear. That is why in our lives, the same problem, the same danger or difficulty will present itself over and over again in various aspects, as long as we continue to resist or run away from it instead of examining and solving it.
And that's why these little aphorisms like you can't run away from your problems. You can move from here to Bethlehem, but if you haven't realized Christ in your heart, Bethlehem will mean nothing to you. You'll have the experience of, oh, I'm in Bethlehem, but you won't really at all. You'll bring all of what you brought with you to Bethlehem or to Varanasi or any of the other sacred places of pilgrimage, Mecca, Copacabana, Bolivia. So Copacabana, Bolivia, by the way, that's not the one on the shore of the Atlantic. That's the one on the shore of the Lake Titicaca, and is one of the great places of pilgrimage of the world, but it's not much known to us here. So anything else? We're getting close to the end of the hour. I want to make sure that before we go on, that everybody is satisfied, that they're clear about what it is that Patanjali and the Swami are talking about. Because this really is a building block process. Patanjali really has created a workbook that it builds and builds and builds, but you must have assimilated what came before what comes later is sufficiently meaningful to you to be motivational. And of course, that's the whole point of studying this, is to motivate us to do what Patanjali is suggesting or recommending, teaching, if that's what we wish to do. But we can't do it without motivation. So anything at all from anyone?
I see, Brother Shankara. Oops, sorry.
Yes, Haima.
Go ahead, Raju, if you want to, please.
Oh, no, carry on, Haima.
Okay, thank you. I see at the end of this paragraph, the end line is examine and solve. If we don't do those two things, you're right, Brother Shankara, even we can run away to Bethlehem, it's not going to be there. Our problems, the dirty laundry will carry with us no matter where we go.
Exactly.
So, examine and solve, we can create our Bethlehem right in our heart.
Well, that's it.
After the food and the clothing, basic needs, these are the two most important ones. Examine, resolve everyday's problems as we go on. That's what I'm understanding.
The little phrase in Christianity is, the little aphorism, though Christ be born in Bethlehem 1,000 times again, he's never truly born until in the hearts of men.
Exactly.
And of course it means men and women. It's just one of the patriarchal ways
it's
of
a
talking.
human, right.
Right.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
so, and to allow Christ to be born in our hearts is exactly what Patanjali is leading us to. Christ and the Atman are identical. Christ said, I and my Father are one. Who is the Father? The Father is Brahman. I and my Father are one. Brahman and Atman are one. This is Brahman come forth to us as an incarnation of personal God. And so if Christ is born in our hearts, or Krishna is born in our hearts, or Sri Ramakrishna is born in our hearts, then all the darkness disappears. Anything else from anyone, please? Rajiv.
Yeah, brother, on the previous sloka, so if we are in some like loop, like I'm connecting it like the neural loop, and then like even in life, the same thing repeats again and again. So I think the key is to try to see what are you attached to, or what are you averse of, and then try to get rid of that attachment and aversion. Is that the key to get out of that loop?
Yes, well, this is the whole point of learning what Patanjali is going to teach us. As we try to practice do our spiritual practices, as we try to practice contemplation, concentration, and meditation, we will soon encounter those repetitive thoughts, those repetitive emotions, those repetitive compulsions that try to distract us from what we're doing. We're trying to be silent. We're trying to sink into the silence, to go within, to introspect, as Schrodinger put it, to do our introspection and examination. And this is what's meant by contemplation, concentration, and its transition to meditation. We soon become very aware of the samskaras that are very prominent in our lives and interrupt us. And they interrupt and distract us when we're trying to do anything else as well. Then later, we learn what is in our active subconscious. Somebody has their mic open, and we're hearing children or something.
Beverly's, Brother Shankara. I see Beverly is open.
Beverly, please mute yourself. So yes, you're exactly right, Rajiv. This is exactly what the issue is. And this is what Patanjali is leading us to in his way, his path of Raja Yoga, which Swami Prabhupada had a great regard for. That's why he wrote this book, because he thought it was very appropriate for us at this time and in this condition that we need this instruction. Anything else from anyone?
Yes, brother, this is Jeff.
Yes, Jeff.
Sri Ramakrishna demonstrated intense aversion to things like woman and gold and worldly talk. And I read a story about when Swami Vivekananda was fairly new to Sri Ramakrishna. He wanted to test him, so he snuck into his room when Sri Ramakrishna wasn't around and planted a rupee underneath the mattress. Do you remember that story?
Oh, very much so, and, yes.
As soon as Sri Ramakrishna came into the room and sat down, he knew that something was wrong, and he searched around until he found the rupee. And
he felt as if he'd been stung by a scorpion. He sat down on his mattress, and he sat down exactly where Vivekananda knew that he usually sat down. That's where he put the rupee. And Sri Ramakrishna jumped up and said, as if he'd been stung by a scorpion. But this is not aversion. This is not aversion in the sense that we normally think of being what Sri Ramakrishna was experiencing was just a physical sensation. He literally could not touch or hold metal. Whatever refinement, he just couldn't do it.
It was more of a highly evolved sensibility and sensitivity to such things.
Exactly. And when he taught against woman and gold, what he was teaching about is our genetic predispositions. We have a genetic predisposition to reproduce. There's no two ways about it. So we're going to be attracted toward, men are going to be attracted toward that with which we do reproduction. And women are going to, he taught women avoid men and gold. So our desire, Beverly, your mic is open, dear. And so what he was teaching was you must not yield to your genetic predisposition toward reproduction, and you must not yield to your genetic predisposition to try to gather and provide for yourself. Christ taught about this also. He said, consider the birds of the air. They till not, nor do they sow, and yet they have plenty to eat. And he said about what to wear, he said, consider the lilies of the field. Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed alike unto one of these.
Brother, I have another thought about this, and I feel that he was taking on some of the tapasya for his followers and his children. I feel that I don't know where I got this from, but I feel that it is easy for his immediate disciples and whoever is under his surrender, like whoever is under his tutelage, to progress because he is sort of doing tapasya for them, and or he did when he was in this body, and so it's because of that and not because of the other things.
Well, this isn't why he taught his many listeners about woman and gold, but yes, he did give each of his direct disciples, the inner circle, he gave them realization. And then they had to make it their own. They had to assimilate what he had given them. But his teachings against woman and gold were, as John Dobson so eloquently explains in his talk, The Equations of Maya. What Sri Ramakrishna is talking about is our genetic predisposition to be materialistic and to reproduce. We're materialistic because we fear being without, and so we gather, we hoard money. We think we need to make lots of money. All those things that he taught about. But you're right that he was able to take on the karma of his direct disciples, but many of them were already very free of karma. They hadn't created much karma and didn't bring much with them because of who they were. So it wasn't, it was only people like Girish Ghosh that he took on these huge amounts of karma that actually led to his final illness.
The other thing I feel is, brother, like if you see like Ramakrishna order, it's relatively like, very few spiritual organizations are actually free of money and gold. I mean, a lot of spiritual organizations, and there is this web series called Ashram, which is describing all sorts of, spiritual people who sort of, they ask their followers to give up woman and gold so that they can take it from them.
Well, of course, this is true, but we don't need to concern ourselves about that. And you're right, the Ramakrishna order is very highly regarded in India, even by the Indian government, as being very pure. And this is a wonderful and great thing. This is, and it is, you simply will not be allowed to remain in the Ramakrishna order as a monastic if you don't demonstrate that you're willing to cooperate with that level of purity. So this is one of the great things about the Ramakrishna order. But we don't need to concern ourselves about those other organizations. Just know when people are selling something or asking for something, there's probably a question mark there. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears, it's after the hour. Tomorrow morning at 11, we'll talk about, in some depth, what we're talking about. We talk about attachment, aversion, and letting go, because we live in an age where there's a great deal of disintegration. And it's very hard for us not to try to hold on to the pleasurable and avoid the painfulness of it. So we're going to, then the title of tomorrow morning's talk is The Witness Watcheth Disintegration. The Witness Watcheth. And as you'll hear, there's a reason for the King James Bible diction of saying watcheth rather than watches. The witness watcheth disintegration. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow morning for those of you who decide to join us. Anything else from anyone? This is a new talk, by the way. It's never been given before. So if you've heard some other talks that had, there's no talk with a similar title, but of course many talks are about attachment, aversion, and renunciation. But this comes at it from, as you'll see, a somewhat different perspective. Anything else? All right, dears. Om Hari Om. Om Sato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless confusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful, may we have peace of mind, and may we be always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Any final thought from anywhere, from anyone? All right, dears. So good to have been with you this morning, or this afternoon, I mean. As always, it's just such a joy to share this way. Until next time, Jai, it's Saturday, Mother's Day, so Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.